reducing the complexity so that we could get the visibility into how the operation was working was critical for us to be able to let the people running these different organizations work. What we had to do was to stop thinking tactically and start realistically looking at where is the business going. The Gretzky quote about skating to where the puck is going to go, right? And what can we do that creates unique value? And I make the distinction between things that create unique value versus the things that are valuable. I would like to think that everything we do as an institution, whether it's mine or yours, is valuable. But I think there's a difference between things that are valuable and have to be done for which we optimize efficiency and effectiveness versus the things that create unique value which allow us to differentiate ourselves and can actually drive top line and actually drive overall revenue growth. Strategy sets your direction, structure and process sort of define your guardrails, and then your talent are the race cars that kind of zip up and down and actually move it forward, working in the direction you've pointed within the guardrails that you've put up. Betting on the people was really, it came down to the recognition that we had to flatten the organization, we needed to align ourselves, but we needed to facilitate the decision making. If you think about it, we started, the Globe was in 1872. About 125 years of there being a really consistent business model where the decision making sort of came up to the top of the pyramid and then it came back down again for ultimately the decision. Now, you had I'll call them fiefdoms, but you had, power centers or decision making centers that existed in other areas of the building as well. But essentially, the business of the business kind of ran up for decision making and then back down through the decision making. So we had to create a way to make those conversations happen and allow the talent within the organization to speak and be heard. And we started talking about having people have not just the ability, but frankly the desire and the encouragement from us to play up a level. If you're sitting in a meeting and making an observation, then make a recommendation. If you make a recommendation and you can go ahead and execute a portion of that, go ahead and execute a portion of that. But try to play up and deliver above where you think necessarily your role would normally be. And out of that comes the change in the culture that we needed to make. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when we would talk about we need more products, or we have to structure ourselves like a product company, there was a huge amount of pushback because product company conjured up this notion of being Pepsi, right, and having a variety of different offerings, but it sounded sort of retail or commercial. And being a mission-driven organization, there was an aversion to that. But over time, what happened is people were able to differentiate the idea of we can still be a mission-driven organization, we can still have the values that we have as an organization, and yet we can still think in terms of products, getting as close as possible to the consumer. Ultimately, the determination of the value that gets created is the consumer. So the closer you can get to delighting the consumer or hearing the voice of the consumer and bringing that back into what's done, the more success ultimately we found that we had. The other piece of it, though, is actually the "In God We Trust," and it was a comment that I had heard way back when, where somebody had said, "In God we trust, everyone else bring data." And so we tried to establish the lingua franca as let's have information around which we have conversations. And it can be imperfect information, it can be, it can be something that we're continuing to develop, but let's start by at least agreeing that we're going to look at what we know and we're going to acknowledge what we don't. The cultural change was so important, was to make sure that people were not only focused on change, but they were focused on change and then change again and then change again.